Going live. Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Matt Aguido here for another Civil Conversations, and I'm excited to have these two here with me, Troy Selberg and Diamond Staton-Williams. And so tonight's going to be a pretty cool conversation. I mean, I know people are going to be joining on now. I saw people coming in. Please feel free to, just glean as much of a perspective as you can from these two. As people are coming in, we'll get ready to jump into the conversation. But feel free to make the comments that you want to on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll be probably flashing up people's comments and questions over the next hour or so of conversation. So I'm just going to give a few more seconds for people to join in. I'm going to check something here on my mobile device, and we're going to get started. All right. All right. Let's get going. So I thought it'd be really good for us to have a conversation about partisan line. Part of the reason why I thought it was important is that in today's current climate, there's what I would consider to be a lot of divide and strife going on. And I'm not that old. I mean, I'll be 40 next year, and I feel like this is some of the worst I've ever seen it. And there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. And when I was talking to Troy about this just last week, actually, one of the things he brought up was like, you know what? I work really well with Diamond, who's also on the city council. Maybe we should get on here and talk about how we work together. And they both represent two different parties. Troy is a Republican and Diamond is a Democrat. And so I guess on the surface or in the media, that sounds like we're about to have a wrestling match. I think Diamond could take out Troy, though. So not too worried about if she can hold her own. I wanted to go into this conversation with an open mind and really learn from them, but then also get their opinion about just what's been going on all up, right? And so we're going to learn a little bit about them, and then we're going to just move on in this conversation. So first, I would like to give you guys an opportunity each to take about a minute to introduce yourselves. I work by ladies first model first, primarily. So Diamond, please, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. I'm Diamond Staton-Williams. I am a nurse by background, manage a department with one of our biggest healthcare organizations in the region. I am a mom and a wife. I have 3 kids. My oldest just graduated from Hampton University with her degree in biology. We're getting into medical school soon. And my middle is home from school. She was going to FIT in New York for fashion merchandising. And so she's here because, of course, New York is shut down as appropriate. And then a new 14-year-old who's in the house, and he's in his 8th grade year at Hickory Ridge. So, and we've been in Harrisburg 12, 13 years now.
Awesome. And Troy?
Yeah, so welcome, everybody. My name's Troy Selberg. I'm a father of 2. I have 2 lovely ladies. One of them has graduated from High Point University. The other one is currently a junior at High Point University. Married to my lovely wife for almost 30 years, and been here in Harrisburg for most of those 30 years. By profession, I'm a business coach and behavior analyst. So I go into businesses and tell them what really they already know in a different way, and help them better understand how to manage their people through behavior analysis.
Awesome. What I like the most about hearing some of this, like just listening to the backgrounds you guys have, it's your regular people. It's unique to you, right? The kids you may have and what they're doing and what you do for a living, but obviously with some of the responsibilities you have when it comes to the town of Harrisburg in North Carolina, you have your political responsibilities, but your regular people handling political responsibilities for the people. So I think that's great. So I really appreciate you guys being on here to talk about this. And so if I could just do like a slight little bit longer intro, or maybe, kind of open the intro up a little bit more in regards to this topic. There's a couple of aspects of, when I say across partisan lines, like what does this look like, right? There's within the government, right? The people like yourself, and then all the way up to, let's say, the President of the United States. And then there's us, the regular, everyday people who don't have political responsibilities or any government responsibilities. And we are loyal to the parties that we say that we're loyal to, or we're loyal to the perspectives that we have, whatever that may be. And it's gotten to a point right now where I'm like, there's so much tension, right? The moment you say you don't like someone, they automatically think you're they automatically think you're on the other side, or you're ready to feel like you're stepping on, you're stepping on their toes because you chose to, you know what I mean? Like it's very personal. And so I want to start specifically with what you two do in the town of Harrisburg, and let's just go there and how you guys work together. I mean, with Troy, you being a Republican, and Diamond, you being a Democrat, and you're being the voices of the people, how do you guys work together to solve these problems or these concerns or whatever you believe in Harrisburg? Either one of you guys can speak up, but how do you work together?
Let me jump in on that, because Matt, you really touched on probably the biggest misconception there is in any political office. And we are, both of us, residents of Harrisburg. We're both taxpayers. We both own homes, have kids. I tell everybody I'm a slave to my German Shepherd all the time. My friends treat me as Troy. Nothing has ever changed. And for the most part, the people that have known me in this community for some 30 years treat me as Troy. They don't treat me as a politician one bit whatsoever. I will say, from my side, people who do not know me and people that I've recently met look at me as a politician, and they really miss the fact that, both of us are just human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, one of the things that drew me to Troy, and I don't know if you even remember this, Troy, but we were both new to campaigning, and we went to an event in Kannapolis, and we were at a park, and I brought my, then she was 16-year-old with me, and he introduced himself to both of us and was giving her coaching tips because she didn't know what she wanted to do after she graduated from school. So having that personal connection has been beneficial for us both. And I think it's beneficial for anyone that would consider getting into an elected role.
Wow. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my attraction to you, Diamond, is, understanding behavior analysis like I do, and body language with people, and the way that their mannerisms are. You're true to who you are. You're not trying to be somebody you're not. And you know what? You call it like it is. And when you see that something's out of place, especially if you believe that my views are different, you're not afraid to just call it like you said.
Yep.
I mean, when you guys talk like that, I mean, I think I think first off, that's great, right? Because, and it's not like we've never seen people from two different quote unquote sides, right? Like take a liking to each other, agree with each other. But I think in today's climate, we almost need to see it more, right? Because it's very, it's like, it's again, like I said earlier, it's like it's either here or here, right? When you're looking at, and when you guys are looking at the things that you are trying to work on in your jurisdiction, like things you're responsible for, which is in the town of Harrisburg, you know, how do you address it from your perspective, knowing that you may have, or does it even bother? Does it even come up? The party, like the way your party looks at things, does that impact you at all? You know, do you have a more liberal view, Diamond, and then Troy? Do you have a more conservative view, and it causes like this thing at all?
No, I don't think so. I think we both look at it, and Troy, feel free to disagree or agree with me as well. But I think we both look at it as how are the decisions that we're making impacting Harrisburg as a whole? How will these decisions be carried forward? Because, you know, I'm not going to live forever, but what will the citizens who come after me, will they benefit from this? And are we doing the right thing for the citizens? So I think that has been a shared thing for us, and we talk about different things. Troy is good to give me different perspectives, because sometimes I am like rah 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 rah, but he brings me back and gives me good guidance, which I appreciate, and I'm also able to provide him with the same.
Yeah. So the partisan line part, where my beliefs as a Republican being very conservative, and Diamond's beliefs on the liberal side, I don't think really come to play in local politics like you see in state politics. So we can talk about the different types of politics. The local politics here in a small town is no different than a big town like Charlotte, the 16th, or I think it's now the 15th largest city in the United States, right? So we're responsible for things like making sure your garbage is picked up. Most people don't understand that when they get up in the morning and flush the toilet, we're responsible for making sure that happens. When you get a glass of water from the sink, you want clean drinking water when you do that. So those are a lot of the things that we are responsible for here at a local stance. When you go to a county side, there's more of a safety type aspect that you can look at it from the county side, where police and sheriff, health and services, those kind of things are kind of carried by the county side. And then you get to the state level, where those partisan lines are really firmly drawn, and people tote those lines more so than I think you're going to see at a local level, like me and Diamond are in.
So does that mean though, like, so thank you for breaking that down like that. I think it's important, because actually Lina Sutherland, I'm going to put her question up here for us to look at. She actually asked a question very similar to what you just touched. So I'm not sure if you saw the comment or what, but it's, do you all think that what you're experiencing and talking about is unique to local government? It doesn't feel like we see this on a federal level, or maybe even the state level. And I think you guys both touched that to some degree. And I kind of wonder though, right? Like, do you feel like you're closer, meaning you and Diamond, or Troy and Diamond, are closer to the people, and as it gets more up, further away, you see where I'm going with that, where it becomes more difficult? Because like one of the comments I heard, or one of the things that came to me today around, like, hey Matt, if this is something you may want to talk about, is like, how do we know that the politicians are really speaking for the people, right? So when I talk to you, Troy or Diamond, I feel like I actually have your ear, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't say the same thing about the governor. And a lot of people who are watching the show, maybe, or whatever, they're in different states. Like, how do you know, right? So does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, are you closer to the people or not? Like, go ahead, Diamond.
I think in a certain perspective, yes, we are, because we actually live here in this community. You can actually see me, touch me, feel me in this community. Whereas, the governor's not coming to sit in Harrisburg and eat at Dunkin' Donuts, but you would see myself or Troy there and be able to talk to us, or we know families, because we're families, and our kids have hung out together, and any issues that may come up from those small discussions, they're able to see a direct and immediate impact because they hear it from either one of us. I think on a bigger scale, I think one of the things that even with my nursing background that we've advocated for is making sure that we advocate for the things that are important to us. Just because that person is not here in this community does not mean that they can't see and understand what you're feeling. So writing letters, calling to the governor's office or different elected officials' offices, and making sure that you get a response. If it's not the response that you like, respond and continue to send that information on to that representative because your perspective is important. And I think sometimes it can be lost, especially when you're not here every day. But I think one of the biggest things I think for many representatives is having those town hall meetings for people in those communities that they serve, which help us to do better.
I think that's critical. Do you think that people are not as aware of just government, right? I mean, like, what's going on in their city. So even though I know this is a town, right? The town of Harrisburg, but let's just blow that up to what most people say. Most people say like, there's town, then there's city, county, and then state, right? And some people live in this case, well, we're right next to, of course, the city of Charlotte and the county, the Mecklenburg County. What's everyone's awareness of what's going on from that perspective so they can understand their connection to the government? Like, what do you think that may be? Because, media, social media, and the news has us so polarized on topics or incidents, right? And then we get upset with different politicians for not doing something. How does that look to you? You guys understand where I'm going with that? Like, just the lack of knowledge, I guess. Go ahead, Troy. Sorry.
So we all are in a world where most of our information comes from social media, and now everyone's an expert. Either it be with the government or it be with how do I fix a starter on my vehicle? And everybody's gonna have an opinion on it, right? Go buy a new vehicle. Go, what are you doing messing around with that thing? Go to AutoZone and get the part. Don't go to AutoZone. Go to O'Reilly's and get the part. I mean, it's amazing what social media does, and many of the opinions from social media are not true to form, and a lot of misinformation gets out there. Then the misinformation gets out. I think I'm speaking for myself, and Diamond, please jump in here. I spend more time correcting misinformation with residents than anything I do.
I agree.
Oh, go ahead, Don. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
What's amazing about that is the way you just worded that. You said you spend more time correcting misinformation with the people in this town, or basically the people that you serve, than anything else you do. The fact that you have the what's the word? The reachability, I guess. Like, you're able to do that for us here, but how do we get that? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's
so we can't do anything, Matt, on a local level without the partnerships with our county and with our state, and it actually reaches into the federal government. I've been in several conversations here locally with federal people who have come to our area and wanted to know what our needs and wants were when we were looking at opportunity zones and where those opportunity zones could be and how that could impact people who work and live in our communities. The federal government wanted to know where those opportunity zones needed to be and what those needs that we really needed, as well as the state. The state government reaches out to us all the time and wants to know, hey, how can we help you? So it's not without the partnership of that. And I think that's really where those partisan lines really help, where I can't reach out to some of the Democratic people at a higher level, but I can reach out to Diamond and go, hey, Diamond, this is kind of what I'm thinking. This is where we're going. can you reach out to some of your people and how do we come together and make this happen?
I like how you touched that. Diamond, go ahead. You had something you wanted to share, then I want to touch on that.
No, I think Troy is correct. I mean, all politics are local, right? So if we're doing our due diligence and working together here, you'll see the changes that you would want to see from interactions with us and our interactions with other officials, even school board. I think that's important too, because sometimes I think many individuals put the school board in a different category, but the school board also plays a part into this as well. We have to have those strong relationships amongst ourselves to be able to impact our community.
No, that's good. And I think when especially the way you both said that, it makes me kind of, I don't want to say feel bad for me, I guess, because I'm, again, as a regular citizen, but just feel bad. I'll say feel bad for me, but I represent everyone else. Just not being able to have that much of an understanding and being close to people that have that understanding to help us be more educated on what's going on. Because, when you think about what you just said, if I was going to apply this to other cities, and I think that's the relevant part of this, right? Or other locations, right? So, larger cities, et cetera. It's almost the same thing, but are they getting the care that they need then in larger cities the way you're able to provide in a smaller town? How does a Charlotte, right? Or how does an Atlanta or a Richmond, are they depending on their counties, their small town leaders like yourselves to help kind of drive the right message? Like Troy, you brought up a point and said, and this is a perfect example of going across party lines, right? You just said, hey, I'll hit up Diamond and maybe she can talk to somebody within the Democratic Party to help me out. But I don't know that that's happening at this level because I'm looking at it at another level, So how do these other cities, how can they? I mean, I don't know. Just, you get what I'm saying?
So can I break it down? I don't want to change your conversation, Matt, but I'm going to change the dynamic of what we're talking about here today.
Yeah.
So let's understand this. A municipality, there's about 540 of them in the state of North Carolina, and there's 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. They are all run as businesses. So the town of Harrisburg has just over 100 employees, and we have about a little over $50 million budget. And we have to balance that budget just like you balance your checkbook every day. So we don't have a pot of money somewhere that we can just go, oh, hey, we bounced a check today. We'll just go get another one. So we have to be good stewards of that money. And if you don't have the money, you can't do the project. So what does that mean? That means that you have to reach out and get grant money from somewhere, from the county, from the state, from the federal government. So as we work on these different projects, these transportation projects like the rail station, or we're putting a 1 million gallon water tower here in this town, and we're trying to keep the taxes low, meaning we don't want to raise the taxes. We're very blessed here that we have the third least tax rate in the state, but being able to provide quality of life and keep low taxes, you have to have the connections with the county, the state, and the federal government to make that happen. And that is the party lines. Diamond has connections that I don't have. I have connections that Diamond doesn't have. And how do we work together to bring in those connections to better the quality of life of residents here in Harrisburg?
So the thing is, and thanks for that breakdown. The thing is, and Diamond, please chime in before, after I make this statement. I think that's a great breakdown of what this looks like, especially within the state of North Carolina, because that sounds very applicable to every single state in the United States of America. So if that's the case, then right, what you just said, where do you think the at least when it comes to the lack of bipartisanship, or when I say lack of, we know bipartisanship has to exist in some form or fashion, or it'll be anarchy. But where do you think the breakdown starts to occur here in the U.S.? Like, it just seems like, like on TV, it seems like, all right, no offense to some of the people who run this nation, but it's like when you get to Senate and Congress, it's almost like it becomes petty level number like 2,000. You're like, what in the world's going on? And then that's what we're hedging. You got to think about the emotions of the people, right? That's what a lot of people are focusing their energy on so much, like on what's going on the right and the left, and then bringing that back home, and it almost doesn't really matter. At least at home, we're so, you know what I mean? Am I making sense, guys? What do you think the breakdown is? Diamond, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in the Senate and in the House of Representatives are where many of our laws and policies are made that impact how we function. And those laws impact us here locally and how we operating within those laws and policies that have been dictated by those specific groups. I think many times individuals really pander to the squeaky wheel. So if you're always hearing this squeak, 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 you're always going to try to appease that squeak, right? Right? I mean, you do.
Girl, you hit it right on. You know that.
Yeah. So you always try to appease that. And by doing so, you often leave out the people who are trying to make that wheel go. Right. And the people that make that wheel go are you and me and Troy, everyday people that make this wheel go around. But this squeak, your special interests, your people who want to donate millions of dollars so you can be reelected and stay into Congress for your whole life. You're trying to appease those people because you want to stay in that position of power. So at the end of the day, is it truly I'm doing what's best for the people or trying to maintain my level of power?
So that's huge. And I think that's that's actually part of the concerns I think a lot of us are seeing today when it comes to these party line loyalty, I guess is the best way to put it. So Tony made a comment on here, Tony T-Bird, he said, his comment was towing party lines, how important is it? And like, that's a real question, right? Because we're, like you said, the people who are in power want to stay in power. So I guess they lean on their fellow party members to do so. But are we getting, at that point, how are we really truly helping people from the top coming down then? Like, are we? Is it, I don't know if I'm wording that question or making that statement correctly, because again, if you're towing a party line, are we now not doing the right thing because it's not what our party wants to do? Do you guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and each individual, each elected official is their own person. So if you are staying true to yourself and what you think is best for people's public safety, their health and well-being, are we doing the right things to maintain those three things? Then you're doing the right thing. And if it's not maintaining those things, is it truly in the best interest of you, the organization that you represent? Is it truly in the best interest?
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Troy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I look at this thing totally different. I look at it from a business standpoint, and a lot of the things that Diamond just spoke about, and she said it different than I'm going to say it. No one looks for the root cause. They're all treating symptoms, right? And when you try to speak to somebody who is toting a party line and you want to get to the root cause, they don't really want to talk about the root cause. They want to talk about the symptoms. And you go, listen, let's do the 5 whys. Let's get down to what the problem is. Let's fix the problem and the symptoms will go away. And I think that's where me and Diamond can have that conversation, because she's in the nursing field. They're not treating symptoms. They're fixing people. Right? So from a business standpoint, I look at this whole thing totally different. And even with our other council members, sometimes I lose them because they're going like, what are you talking about? And I'm playing chess. I ain't playing checkers. Right? And we're looking for that long-term effect, because someone will say, oh, you approved that housing development. Well, that housing development is not going to be built out for probably 7 or 8 years. It'll be 2 years before ground gets broken.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone thinks, oh, we're going to have a flood of kids in our school next week. And you're like, yeah, no.
So is that the emotional? Is that just a emotional flash emotional reaction kind of thing?
Yeah,
you know,
it truly is, because they're not seeing this thing holistically and how everything is involved. We don't do anything that the school board doesn't know that's getting ready to happen. They know that developments are coming. They have their finger on the pulse. They know about how many houses are built in the state of North Carolina, or truly in the county itself. How would you like to be a municipality that has lost jobs because maybe a business has left, and now the school doesn't have enough students to occupy it? And that's happening within 50 miles of where we're sitting right now.
Mm.
So we have schools closing. We have municipalities that are in trouble and having to raise taxes because people are moving out of the town and their tax base is leaving.
Mm.
But nobody's talking about those kind of things.
I think it's out of sight, out of mind. I think if you haven't traveled the eastern part of North Carolina, where some of those businesses have left the state altogether, and the town was dependent on that company to, one, provide infrastructure support. So those companies help, the taxes that come from those companies help provide that. So roads, light, whatever you need. And it also helps support our schools. If you're not looking at that piece and how to keep those businesses where they are, you're in a losing battle. So you have to think about it, like Troy said, in a holistic manner. What is this housing development going to bring to our community? Is it going to help keep our taxes low? Is it going to help build out our infrastructure, improve our roads, improve how we are able to maneuver in our town? Is it going to bring more business opportunities? I mean, we consistently hear we want a sit-down restaurant here in Harrisburg. How are we going to get a sit-down restaurant in Harrisburg when every single one of us, I don't want to say every single, but the majority of us don't even be there. We're not even here during the day. We work in Charlotte. We work in Concord. So we're not here to support that business. That business wouldn't be a viable business here. So those companies look at that. They look at those type of things in order to bring their business here. And we have to be able to support that business if we want it to be a long-term establishment.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because for some reason the company that popped in my mind was like Amazon, like years ago, when Amazon was looking for where to put their next headquarters, right? And I think they were trying to decide between Charlotte and Brooklyn. Like, remember, all these cities were like, come here, right? Come here. And I feel like the amount of, and I use ignorance not in an assaulting way. I'm just going to look at myself even just as a regular citizen, the amount of ignorance that we may have at our local level around what it takes to kind of run a city. When you tie it to things like taxes, for example, or like, that's a huge deal, right? Because, you think about the how everybody's upset about taxes, right? You hear it from the right or the left at a higher level, but a lot of that is local government, right? And how often do we actually invest in understanding our local government from the perspective of its impact to the things you two just spoke about? It doesn't seem like the education is there. I mean, I'll put myself out there, this year, probably, maybe 2 years, two elections, maybe the last four elections, like state and local, and also federal, like national. I've done way more research in regards to the people who are on the ballot. It's not perfect, though. I'll admit that. Like, I split with my wife. I was like, hey, you figure out who these people are and you let me know what the deal is. But like, sometimes, man, I'll go back and look, 20 years ago when I'm voting, I was like, eeny, meeny, miny, red. Okay, boom. Eeny, meeny, miny, blue. And then that's it. But those who knew exactly who to vote for, they got their guy or gal in place, right? And that's unfortunate. I can switch to something real quick around, just unless you guys have a comment to that.
So I want to play partisan lines, right? So let's play this game, right?
Yeah.
So the tax base in Harrisburg is primarily residential. We need to diversify that and bring some commercial development here in the community. Diamond, we need workers. What does that mean to you?
For me, how are these workers going to be able to get here? Do they live here in this community? Are they able to afford to stay here in this community? Those are things that I would look for as an organization. Their education level, the transportation of the town. Are they able to use citywide transportation? Is that even available? How does that look? Do I have the people in this community?
As a Republican, Diamond, I'm going to bring business to this community, right? But I need a $17 or $18 wage, right? What can you do to help me with that? And what do we have to do to make that happen?
Let's work with our local organizations. Let's work with the county. How can we work with Rowan Cabarrus County Community College? Do they have a program that can support my organization? So if I'm a welding business, do they have a welding program that can supply me with the workers that I need? Or do I have to bring in my own workers? Because if I bring in my own workers, they're going to need somewhere to live, right? So can the workers that I'm bringing here, can they afford to live here in this community? And if they can't, this is probably not a viable place for them, right?
Do you find
so how do I get those people here transported? Is there buses that come here? Is like
there's no rail, there's those things are not available. They may be in driving distance. So you have to have a car. And if you're gonna buy a car, it's $20,000, $25,000 for a Fiesta. So how can they afford that?
So when this is happening, right? When you're sitting on council, you're going back and forth like this. And I'm not assuming that, you have more people on council, so not everybody's always going to be on the same page. How do you work that stuff out? You end up in a stalemate sometimes where it's just like, screw it, I'm just gonna go on social media and blast them kind of thing. Like I'm joking, right? But you know what I mean.
You try to work and build consensus outside of meetings. So again, that's one reason why building a great rapport with people beforehand or during your tenure is important, because if you're able to build that rapport, you're able to sit and listen to the conversation, weigh the pros and cons of that conversation, and make the best decision based on your values and what is important for the community. How is that decision going to help support the community?
Got it. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I appreciate you doing that exercise there, Troy. I want to pivot on something real quick. I want to kind of raise this up a little bit higher in regards to more of like an opinion conversation, right? And let's have the Democrat and the Republican kind of come out in this part of the conversation. Now that we go into a more national level, national and state level, how do you guys think we can start to impact our senators, our governors, our congressmen and women, our president, whoever that may be, and SCOTUS, right? Supreme Court. How do we impact those sides? Because right now it's a hot mess, and that's polarizing people that are living in your neighborhood and living your area. What are your thoughts on that? Like overall, I mean, either one of you can go first. What are your thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Don.
So again, I think I touched on this earlier when we first started talking, but we are very busy. We are tied to our social media. We are tied to our jobs. We are tied to our families, and we spend a lot of time away from those things that probably impact us the most, which is our local and state and federal elected roles. So being an advocate for yourself, being involved in different community activities, writing letters, calling your legislative officials. I mean, even at the state level, you can call and email those officials. I've gone to Raleigh, and I know Troy has as well, to advocate for things that were important to me. I'm on the county's Adult Care Homes Committee, and I'm passionate about old people. So I've gone to Raleigh to advocate with those legislators about how to help those residents in those communities. So having those one-on-one conversations and using those days where you can take a day off to go visit any other legislators, but being able to be upfront and be in those places that oftentimes we're uncomfortable with, because that's usually where the rub comes in, where we're uncomfortable with having those hard conversations, but we have to have those conversations if we want to see things change.
That makes sense. Troy?
I just think you need to get involved. We have a huge problem in the United States as a whole of people do not get involved until it directly affects them, right? So everyone thinks everything's status quo until they're putting a nuclear power plant in their backyard, right? And then, all of a sudden it's a problem. Who do I need to talk to? And you go, I'm sorry, you don't know who to talk to? Oh, you have no idea who any of your elected officials are, and you didn't even go vote. Or maybe you just went and voted, and you voted, partisan lines, and you don't even know who that person is that you put in office.
Right.
And that person's not even qualified to be in that position because they can't even balance a checkbook, let alone balance a budget in a municipality. So it's much bigger than this conversation, Matt, because in my mind's eye and what I'm seeing is people are getting elected that have no business being an elected official, and it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with common sense. Can you balance your checkbook? And many of these politicians don't care and don't care where the money's coming from.
So the loyalty, though, that's to the party lines, depending on the people, however way you want to vote, is kind of risky. It's almost like, why have, I didn't put this up here, but, Tony actually made this as a comment. It's like, do we even think we need political parties? Because it's one of those things where people are choosing very important roles blindly. I mean, all the way up to Senate. I mean, like I said, I was joking, but I was not joking. Eeny, meeny, miny, red, eeny, meeny, miny, blue. Like, that's literally that's it. Like, it's no real thought behind it. And so what ends up happening is, this is another area I wanted to touch on tonight that I was giving some feedback on, is the trust issues, right? You have people who don't trust people that are in positions, but they're getting policies for us every day, right?
Every day.
But they didn't, this is the tough part. We want to trust the politicians we put in place. And lots of times we're enamored with the president of the United States of America, Senate, governor, sometimes city. Nobody really cares about anybody else, it feels like, right? But how easy is it to really trust someone you never chose?
I think you have to do your research. That is the biggest piece that I see for a lot of people. We don't research. We don't fact check and do our own independent research. You have to go look people up, look at their voting records, especially for the state legislature. You're able to see what their voting records are. How did they vote on specific issues that are important to you? So if healthcare is important to you, go look and see what that person voted for. If you want to, really get down to brass tacks, we have to be invested. And a lot of times we're not vested. We do. I did just like you did, Matt, when I was in my early 20s. I was going to vote, but I was just voting because of, I saw this person's name. Right. Somebody vote for such and such, but I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't research. I didn't start really researching my candidates until I was in my 25, 26, just to see exactly, I may be putting in a rapist into one of these roles. And that's not right. Who is this person that I am putting my name behind? It's like I am vouching for this person. I vouch that this person is going to do what's in the best interest of all of us when I go vote. But if I haven't done my research, am I doing a disservice to all of us? Because if that person gets elected and they don't do the things that we want them to do, or they have promised us that they will do, who's going to be upset? they're going to try to get reelected again, but am I still going to give that person my vote?
Look at what like Diamond said, look at the background, right? What do? Do they volunteer their time to community services? What boards are they on? Are they on an executive level on those boards? How are they making decisions among their community and making their communities better? Or are they just going in there to make money, right?
And that's at all levels, though, right? I mean, at that point, I mean, obviously it gets a little tougher at the president, but, you know, president of the United States and maybe at the governor, I don't know. But like, I mean, well, everything you said about research, that can go all the way up to the top. I'm just saying, like, some of the things we have to look at, I guess, does vary, but you need to do the research to know what the history is on these topics. Do we find that, like, and again, this is more of an opinion piece, the way that now that people have voted, like now when people vote, right, do we find that the attitudes now of the people today have just become so harsh towards the party that they just disagree with? So, for example, right, a governor wins. This is what I see a lot of, and I'm not going to name names because it's easy to name. You know, well, this state is like this because they're run by a liberal governor. Well, the people in that state put that person in based on the majority that chose that person, right? Correct. So what happened to the respect for the titles now, like for the people, right? It's almost like because they represent a party, the respect goes away by the other side. And now the squeaky, like you said earlier, the squeakiness from the people who on the opposite side, someone has to respond to that, right? You guys get where I'm going with all of this? Like, what's going on? I mean, what do you think's going on with that? Any thoughts to what I'm stating?
You're speaking to behavior stuff. You're not speaking to politics in my world. You're speaking to a very huge dynamic of what's going on and how social media is steering people down rabbit holes, and how social media is changing the way that people view each other. If you've never watched Social Dilemma, I encourage you to do so.
Yeah,
it is a very eye-opening thing where once you start looking at certain things on social media, and I use we'll just say Diamond enjoys Corvettes. I mean, look at that hair. I mean, you got to have a Corvette, right? And I'm a Mustang guy. And when Diamond starts looking at Corvette stuff online, you know, she's looking at, you know, wheels and, you know, fancy things to put on her Corvette. And I'm looking at things to do to my Mustang, right? So I get with Diamond and I go, hey, Diamond, what's up, girl? You enjoy cars? I enjoy cars. That's pretty cool. And she looks at me and goes, you're a Mustang guy. And I go, okay. So what's that mean? And she goes, well, we all know that Corvettes outrun Mustangs every day. Well, on her social media, that's all she sees because she's looking at Corvette stuff. And the algorithm does that. On my side, it shows Mustangs outrunning Corvettes every day. And I'm going, Diamond, you're stupid. You don't know what you're looking at. I'm looking at social media, and Mustangs are outrunning Corvettes every day. If you put that in a political sense, when you look at somebody and I go, hey, do you not understand what's going on here? And they go, no, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. And you go, okay. And I put my clothes on this morning the same way you did. I have values. You have values. How do we respect each other's values and still maintain a civil society?
And I think, go ahead, Diamond. I'm sorry. Go ahead first.
Good. Oh, you good.
Owen is this is creating a set of people that actually decide on political positions, though. And that's the part that I'm a little worried about, why I touched it, right? Human behavior. So there's one thing where there's like actual things that we need to deal with. Let's say there's real problems. Like earlier you brought up, you know, the water system or housing or whatever. But like now when you have this perception that's being drawn on social media by either conspiracy theorists or the politicians themselves, right? Or the people who are what I would call to be strong in either side of the partisan line influencers, right? There's plenty of names out there, right? Now they're affecting the vote totally different now, where I'm getting in my car as a stark Republican or a stark Democrat to vote blue or red, right down the middle, no matter what. That mentality is, I mean, that's now putting, to your point earlier, Troy, possibly very unqualified resources in roles, no matter what you get what I mean? It's almost like saying, well, we got the Democratic governor out, we got a Republican governor in, he or she's going to be perfect, and then walk away. And they may be horrible. Diamond, you about to say something. Go ahead.
It's tribalism. I'm going to go with the tribe that I think best supports my passions. And sometimes your tribe is not the best. You have to look at other tribes to figure out exactly who works best, and that's going to support your passions. Tribalism.
Wow. Thoughts on that, Troy?
No, I think she's 100% correct on that. And unfortunately, what you have to do is you have to take the worst of two evils, right? So I want something to pass. I need something to happen as a position, a political position, and I have to give up something that, yeah, I know is not right and is not good, but I had to do it to get what I needed.
Right.
And those kind of things need to stop. They really do.
That's a good point. By the way, a question just came in. This is a pivot back to local government. So this person I actually know, they live in Texas. So you can't speak for Texas, but I think this question is definitely something you guys can help with, because this goes two ways, right? So I'm going to read it, then I'm going to kind of give my summarization. How realistic is it to get the attention? This is from Trishala Marks. To get the attention of local officials with letters, calls versus protests. Are they really listening and making moves to address/resolve our concerns? How often does that happen? Most of us don't think the government cares. So before you respond to that, I'm going to start backwards from Tishala's statement. Most of us don't think the government cares. I think that's a fair statement, not because it's accurate for everyone, but I think that's a fair statement because in some cases you may feel defeated before you even get started. Thanks, T'Challa, for making that question. What do you guys think about that? Right? Thoughts? Anybody want to take that one?
I say define government, right? Because I care, and everybody I know cares. Now that doesn't necessarily mean they can do anything about it, but they care, and they want to hear it. And unfortunately, the complexity of how our government has been put together, you can't pull the pixie stick out of the bottom because the whole thing will crumble. So when it looks very simplistic, where you can go, oh, why don't we just, build 7 more schools? That'll solve the problem. And you go, great, let's do that. Where's the money coming from? Well, what do you mean the money? And you go, yeah. So nobody takes it to the next step. And so they'll look at me, or they'll look at Diamond or another official in Texas and say, you must not care because you didn't do this. Rather than asking the question, and they are very accessible. They all have, my phone number is published. My email is published. Diamond's phone number is published. Every public official, it's public information that all you have to do is look online, pick up the phone, and call. You can call the governor right now. You may not get the governor, but you'll get one of his people.
Yeah, I feel you. Go ahead, Diamond.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. T'Challa, you have to be in it to win it. It's just like playing the lotto, right? If you don't play, you may not have that opportunity to win. So in order to get your voice heard, you have to protest our right by the Constitution, right? Your ability to talk to your representative is your right. You can email us, call us. If you're not getting the response that you want, You can make a visit to your council meeting. You can make a visit to your county commission meeting. You can make a visit to the governor's office. Again, we have to be vested.
Yeah. Now, can I go ahead, Dom? I'm sorry.
We have to be vested.
Let me ask this question because I don't think this necessarily fits. This is more of opinion side, right? So this doesn't necessarily fit exactly what you all do. I don't think, but I think this is important to touch though. You brought up the point earlier around the squeaky noise, right? And when you have someone like Tashala or myself or whatever, we're one person, right? We probably aren't as noisy one person, right? Maybe 1,000 of us, that's a lot of noise. So there's a volume there, right? That could probably if you get everybody behind it, you can probably make enough noise to get something changed. But what about the dollars that some people believe? And maybe this is I don't ever want to kind of go along lines of conspiracy, but I will say we all know money does impact things, right? The combination of the dollar and the people who want to maintain power, those two pieces right there, not wanting to hear what's being recommended by voices because it may impact something else that they politically don't want to touch. You see where I'm going with that? And I think that's part of, and I don't think that's exactly what Shashala was saying, but it wouldn't surprise me if that plays a part in it. And that goes back into trusting our officials because we're like, hey, this is a real problem. This is a real problem, whatever this is. We're raising it and no one's listening. And then it's like, what do we do, right? Did that scenario make sense, guys, what I just said?
Right. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Some individuals listen to their special interest groups. Those special interest groups will absolutely give more to campaigns to get things done that benefit them as an organization or a special interest. However, it's incumbent upon us to put the heat on, to put the pressure on. If you're not getting what you need or seeing what you need to see, absolutely organize, pull people together that you think will help push your agenda along or push your passion along so it can get recognized. And it goes back to us being vested. It may not feel like anyone cares, but we have to be vested into the whole process. I think we only get vested until one stopping point. What happens after I get to that stopping point? Be vested after that.
So I thank you for that. Troy, any comment on that?
Yeah, I'm not of the let's get together and get some torches and some rakes and let's go march on anything.
No, we're not gonna do that.
I don't think that ever settles anything. I'm of the belief that everything can be worked out by communication, and the miscommunication that happens so often is 90% of the problem. And then you do have, like in anything, a few bad apples who are truly looking after themselves and their own interests and the special interest groups that they represent. And I don't think that represents all of people who volunteer their time to public service. Because, at certain levels, even my wife brings this up all the time. Between the boards that I sat on and the money that is so graciously given to us as public officials, which is pennies. How do you do it for that kind of money? So if tomorrow someone said, Mr. Selberg, we're more than happy to, give you a seat on Congress or Senate. And I look at that and I go, for the amount of money that they make, I ain't got time to do that.
Right.
Right. Like I don't have the time to do that. Because it's not enough money for the amount of time that it takes to do it. It just isn't.
Wow. Yeah.
So what we do is part-time. And what I do is out of the passion of making my community better. I'm not in it for the money. At our level, money doesn't even play a part in it.
It doesn't. But I think that the problem is right now with the way things are at a partisan line level, and this is again higher than what you guys play at right now. And let's say right now, because hey, maybe one of you guys would be the future governor or something. I'll be like, hey, I remember it, like having a conversation with them one day. But anyway, I think with all of that, if it's the money, if it's the behavior, if it's whatever, I think a lot of that now comes in. It's just so polarizing. It comes into play so much right now that it wouldn't surprise me that even if we do go back to local, like if you look at voting at the local level now, it's more of like, oh, Troy's a red guy, I'm definitely going to vote for him, which I'm sure it happens already, right? And Diamond's a blue gal, let me go ahead and vote for her. And it's almost like everything's thrown out the door because it just trickles back down. You know what I mean? Like that's a concern. I want to go back to something. Jason Thompson had made a comment to your comment on tribalism. You guys were speaking on because I asked for a reminder. He said they were speaking about tribalism. Whose responsibility is it to change that? The officials or the individuals? I think that's a fair question. What do you guys thought? Again, this is more opinion based, so I would love to get you guys' opinion on that. Any thoughts on that?
It's all of us. I mean, we all play a role in that. We all play a role in tribalism. Yeah. Although I may identify as a Democrat, I still do my research on topics that are important to me. Healthcare is always important to me. So I'm going to do my research on that individual that I'm going to elect as a personal citizen, as a person. I'm just going to do my research on that on my own. But it's all of us. We all need to put down our social media, really, honestly and truly, and get out and meet people face to face, and really see what people are about. I would have never known Troy had it not been for us both running for office. I mean, we don't travel in the same circles, so us being in this space together has opened my eyes to things, and I'm sure it's opened his eyes to some things as well.
Mm.
I'm gonna say it's up to the individuals, right? And I'm gonna say it in a different way. If you are truly passionate about your community and you want to make a difference, then you need to step up, like me and Diamond have, and hold your hand up and said, I want to run for political office. I want to make a difference. I want to understand what it is, and I want to understand how I can help change the broken wheel.
Yep.
That makes sense. No, I feel you guys on that. That's interesting. I think if I can push a little bit on that from a talking point standpoint, not because everything you guys said makes sense. I think that totally is applicable. I think part of the problem is it's hard to put down social media because now a lot of news is primarily delivered that way in some cases, right? And I think to Jason's point about who's responsible, when you get into that leadership position and you're aware that there may be some level of over tribalization or some level of like, you know what I mean? Like, don't fan the flame that's already there, like burning, right? And so I don't know. I mean, we're all responsible, but I personally feel like once you start becoming more responsible, have higher responsibility, you're more. It's the old Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility, I guess, or whatever, right? And I look at that, I'm like, I'm with you guys both. It's all on us. But I'll be honest with you. If I saw a governor thinking the way I'm thinking, like I expect the governor to not think like me. I expect the governor to think, not saying that everybody's perfect, but just more responsibility, more governory. All right, like. So I don't know if that's really fair to say.
I think it's a level of professionalism, is what you're saying,
right?
A level of professionalism and respect for the office that people hold.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Troy, what are you gonna say?
So listen, I'm a father, a husband, and a slave to my German Shepherd. Right? We're not politicians, and our current president, President Trump, is not a politician. There's nothing presidential about him. He does not conduct himself presidential. He's a businessman, and he knows how to make things happen. and it rubs people wrong. But let's be honest, Diamond's a nurse, and she's a mother, and she might rub people wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
I know I rub people wrong because, look, I'm a business guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the numbers.
So
and if the facts bother you, don't ask the question.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to hear on both sides, no matter what it is. That people go rub people the wrong way, but I think if you are really listening to the voice of the people who you do serve, then I think the it would help, I guess, is the best way to put it, people to trust more, right? If they know that they're being heard. If you don't mind, I want to switch to something that was said earlier. Because you said something, Troy, that I was like, should I say anything about it? And then like Tashala and Tony commented, and I'm like, I think I want to touch this. And I want to either give opportunity to clarify. You mentioned about the pitchforks and stuff like that. Let's just and then even in Tashala's question, she mentioned something. Let's focus a little bit on protesting. So protesting historically, I mean, this nation literally has had almost all of its major policies put in place via some form of a protest, in some form or fashion, especially over the last, 100 years. But I mean, heck, we can go back to how we started. It was a protest, right? Is there anything wrong with doing a protest to get what's necessary done? Right? I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I'm not putting protests in before. I want to get ahead of the statement, though. I'm not putting protests in the same category as riots. That's two totally different things. What's wrong with it?
But it is the same thing. So a sit-in if you're in a sit-in in North Carolina at a soda shop, and you are sitting in because you are protesting and wanting change, or you're burning down Minneapolis, Minnesota because you didn't like it, they're protesting. And so I don't support a violent type thing. If you want to come sit in to prove your point, you're going to get noticed.
Mm.
Yeah, burning the town down? Yeah, maybe not so much.
Diamond?
Yeah, I do think I classify them as different. So protests are different. Protests are at the root of it have always been nonviolent. I mean, the Boston Tea Party, I don't know, was that truly a protest, or was that a riot? How did we truly get away from English rule as a country, right? They threw the tea in the river, and they burned down property. But
Riot. I mean, Jason's actually making a comment saying riots, in America, that people understand riots like violence and money. So like, when you do think about the Boston Tea Party, that's a cut you off, Diamond, but it's funny when you think about the Boston Tea Party, property was damaged and it was a protest. Yeah. And there was a response to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was a strong response to that, right? It's a very strong response. So we have to weigh those things. But I think what has been most effective for us has been peaceful protest. I think the reaction to the peaceful protest have enabled that change to happen quicker, if that makes sense. So you have a fraction of people who are truly in it to change it. You have people who are reacting to those protests who may not want to see that occur, or who do want to see it occur and ignite that flame to ratchet up a notch, right? So it is our constitutional right, like I said earlier, to gather and assemble in protest. All right. How we maneuver with that is another story. It just is. But I don't think any of us would condone violence and burning of property. I don't think anybody would, especially in the communities that it happened to, that were already impoverished and in suffering.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think I'll put it like this, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Okay, I want to start that. I want to state that. I understand why riots exist, and I understand why protests exist. It's hard for me to say don't do either of those, like the riots and protests. Like again, I'm taking harm out of the conversation. I'm taking harm out of the conversation because when you think about the change that does happen after that, like from its inception, right? Let me go back. From its inception, I don't want to say inception. Let's talk about just U.S. Riots are destructive to those who don't want them to exist anyway. So the three of us can sit here and say we don't want riots, and there were probably three people 200 years ago that said we don't want riots. And there's been a change that's occurred because of the riots. So the riots have produced something good in some form or fashion, even though it may have sucked, right, in that moment. Especially if lives are lost. At that point, I will flat out say I don't want any lives lost and stuff like that. But it's like, do we say no to riots when we know that it's been somewhat successful in the past? I'm just being devil's advocate. You guys tell me. For those who are Christian watching this, angel's advocate. I don't care. But like, what do you think, Troy? Troy, I mean, you look like you're itching to say something.
No, this is another one of those times that Diamond has shed light on something that I didn't look at quite that way. And that's how we work as a team. And she just now was able to help me look at something a little bit differently. Doesn't mean that my mind has changed, but I have a different view of the way that she spoke about the violence in thank you, Diamond.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
But about it is, and back to the whole thing about cross-partisan lines, one of the things that has been lost at the higher levels that we're seeing a lot of, at least maybe what's been televised, and then it's trickled down to their followers or its followers or just all of us, is that there's respect between between the two sides that's actually eroding. So like literally, you can go back. I'm just picking these moments up, right? May it be, and to be fair, I'll be balanced on both sides. Let's just talk pure presidential. When the guy from South Carolina yelled "You lie" in the middle of Obama speaking in 2011 or 2010, whenever that happened, right? And then on the flip side, the way Pelosi was clapping to Donald Trump, last year, a year before, when she was kind of doing that little shady clap or whatever. And these are leaders, though, right? Like, you got to think Pelosi and the South Carolina senator, I think it is, are leaders. I'm not here to speak on if they were right or wrong. I'm just saying we, as the normal everyday people, follow that. And I think this goes back to Jason Thompson's point on who's responsible for the tribalism, right? Because at the end of the day, there were tons of memes that were like, of course, because her situation was more in social media time, right, with Pelosi. There were tons of memes that were like, yeah, she did it, she got him. And then the guy who, again, I'm doing this to shed on support, not what this type of sport was, because due to social media. And then the guy in South Carolina raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for people who supported him. We get behind the foolishness that we want to be on the side. Like, are y'all feeling me? I don't know. Troy?
No. Yeah, I think since 2008, we've seen an erosion of the respect for different offices. So right. The senator in South Carolina, he was disrespectful. That's not something that you do on a world stage at all to the president of the United States. What Nancy Pelosi did was disrespectful in the grand scheme of things. I mean, at all levels, you should hold your professionalism, right? That's what people look at. That's what they follow. And if yelling out "you lied" appeal to you, I can see why you gave that man $10,000. You know what I mean? Because it appealed to you. It appealed to your innate behaviors and true feelings, right? If Nancy Pelosi clapping shadily appealed to you, that appealed to your innate behaviors and how you think about that person. So it's all about professionalism.
Yeah. So go ahead, Troy.
No, I really can't speak to Nancy Pelosi. I think she's been in office as long as I am old. So you want to talk about the tribalism and where it started with? Yeah, it was back before I was born, because these people have been in office as long as I'm old. So when you talk about that, who continues to keep these particular people in office? Individuals.
Individuals, corporations, money, and lacking education by those individuals. So there's a lot of factors, though, and you're right. It is individuals, but I mean, some people literally go uncontested. I mean, like that, like that's almost like, I know I'm going to lose. I'm not even going to bother, right? And you're like, wow, that's a problem. But that goes back to some of the issues we have today in regards to the loyalty that people may have to their parties because of the people that are tied to them, and they're just used to them, or afraid of them, or whatever. I'm not too sure. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, I thought that was oh, this is a good question. This is actually my father. I'll put him up here right now. Ruben Aguido.
Hey, Dad.
Almost all politicians blame social media. At the same time, they run to media to get their point across. Do politicians believe that social media is bad? I think that's a fair statement, like a fair statement in question.
Social media is an effective marketing tool. It's an effective marketing tool. If you want to reach the masses, you can do so and reach them easily and very cheaply, I might add, on social media.
Right.
So it's how you use the social media. Are you using it for good? Are you using it for the bad? Are you spreading disinformation? Are you spreading the true facts? I think, again, going back to individuals who play into tribalism, it is incumbent upon the individual elected roles to give all the information, not the information that appeals to their base, but the information that is going to make them think and make educated decisions.
That makes sense. Troy?
Yeah, I say go watch Social Dilemma before you wade into social media. And Diamond is correct. Speak the truth, not partial truths, and spread that. But as Social Dilemma will tell you, misinformation gets 6 times the click rate. So, believe in social media as you will. I have a total different view now that I've watched that movie, and I will be looking at social media totally different moving forward.
That's good. So, towards just in this last 2 or 3 minutes, I want to state this, bringing it to cross-partisan lines when it comes to YouTube. One of the things I think I wanted everybody to really see is the level of respect that you all have being in 2 different party lines, and how you guys have worked together in regards to getting things done, either at the local level here in Harrisburg, and then of course we talked about that at a larger level. It almost sounds like to me, as we talk through this, that it really does just go back to respecting each other and people's involvement in the government, right? Meaning not necessarily running for government or official roles, but also them either voting, sending letters. Of course, they're going to have the protesting and the riots that's going to be involved as well. But that is what it is. But for the most part, try to get as involved and educated as possibly can to help when it comes to kind of being able to kind of get back to some level of bipartisanship, even if it's just at an emotional level, because it's probably definitely happening behind the scenes, but that emotional tension is pretty high. Just as a close for both of you guys, if there's anything you wanted to share either with myself or those who are watching or anybody in Harrisburg, since you guys represent Harrisburg, please take the opportunity to do so now. Anything that's on your mind you want to just kind of close out with.
Go ahead, David.
First, I want to give a shout out to my girl, Carol Selberg. Hey, Carol. I love Carol. But I think, again, the town of Harrisburg has done a very good job of providing educational opportunities. We have a facts and fiction page that I think many residents need to visit quite often for updated information. The website, of course, and other information. We are working diligently to provide updates on different projects and things like that for people to stay informed. I also think for anyone in Harrisburg attending or applying to be a part of the Citizens Academy that's held each fall would be beneficial. So you can learn more about the ins and outs of how the town works, how the town serves you, and how council helps support your vision for a safe community.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Great speech there, Diamond. And I'm sure Carol's going to buy you a cup of coffee for that one. Thank you. No, but I just want everyone to know that it doesn't matter if it's Harrisburg or the community that you're in. It's not a bubble. And the community reaches out to the county and to the state. Educate yourself in what it is and understand that all political officials are human beings and people no different than yourself. We get up every morning and put our clothes on and go to work just like you do. It's a team. It's a group of people working towards a common goal. I'm just but one vote of 7 people on a council that governs a community. And I cannot make a difference without a team and those people like Diamond Staton-Williams and being able to listen to her constructively, not just to hear, but to understand. And I think that's what we miss so much in community today is we listen to respond and we don't listen to understand. So please educate yourself. And like Diamond said, be part of our academy and understand what government is. And if you'll do that, I think it'll give you a different understanding of political officials.
That was great for both of you guys. So I want to say, kind of in summary, one of the things that I took from this is the word respect, and that right there takes some effort, right? Obviously, but it's super important in order for us to be able to kind of reach across these partisan lines, either in our personal life or within the government. And we're seeing this from the top down. And there is a lack of respect that has been occurring, especially in regards to what we're seeing at the federal and maybe state levels or whatever you may say. But we don't necessarily have to reflect that lack of respect in our own everyday lives. Be careful with what we manage on social media, what we take in on social media or through the news, because it does impact our day to day, but it also heavily impacts the way we respond to people who are different from us. Especially when they're, somebody who may be a Democrat and you're a Republican, or somebody who's Republican, you're a Democrat, and you're like, I don't want to listen to anything that person says because they're just left wing or right wing. The truth of the matter is, it goes back to something that Troy just said. Some people just are listening, waiting to just respond, and that's about it. And it's important for us to be able to take that in and note that we have to listen, we have to be able to understand, and hopefully at your local level, whatever city you live in. Hopefully you can get the same access to what I just was able to get access to in my own area of Harrisburg, and maybe look at your town a little bit differently. Again, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. To Shala's point, it's hard. You don't know, especially depending on where you live, how easy it is to get to those government officials. But at the same time, it does take effort, and hopefully we can try. But on the flip side, we do need our politicians. And if anybody watches this that's at another level, we need you guys to help lead in regards to the way things are, because people do follow your leadership. And if you're not respecting one another, people are going to reflect what you're doing as well. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Troy and Diamond for the time this evening. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. And thanks, guys, for another Civil Conversations. Peace.
Have a good night.